Down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. And that's kind of interesting. I'm hearing myself a little strange tonight in the monitors. That's kind of weird. Anyway, all right. Well, hopefully everybody had an absolutely wonderful Christmas over the weekend. I know that I did. I was very fortunate. My family took care of me, and I've got a couple of things that I want to show you that I received over that time. But I also want to let everybody know that I absolutely appreciate you, typical malcontents and miscreants, for joining me tonight here on the second to last episode of the 2022 year. Now, for those of you that are not aware, I am planning to do a full 3-hour stream starting on Saturday for New Year's Eve. Now, how that's going to work is it's basically going to be, I'm going to start at my typical time at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And I am going to go through the show for an entire 3 hours, all the way up to and including midnight. And yes, there will be a countdown timer. I already have one kind of set up. A countdown timer for us to watch the time, and it is going to be. I think it's going to be pretty epic, but I mean, it'll be my first time streaming for a full 3 hours, so we're going to have to kind of make make it go as it goes. But that's coming up on Saturday. But tonight I've got a few articles and things about a Twitter dump that happened, ironically, on Christmas Eve. And I have a great pet of the week provided by 3 Chevy, which I see is over in the Rumble chat. So that is awesome that he is here so he can see that. And I also have a slight bit of comic relief, which also sort of demonstrates some of the stupidity that's running around in this world. Anyway, all right. So first things first. This was one of my Christmas presents this year, and I know that you guys know that I do drink the Four Roses single barrel Kentucky bourbon. Well, this is Four Roses small batch, and it's got a slightly different taste to it in terms of how it tastes versus the other one, but they're pretty close. They're pretty close to the other one. Now, Daybreak is asking on Rumble. Daybreak, who is on Rumble, Daybreak, I'm basically asking, what are you asking for? Yes, I will be transmitting on all my regular locations for Saturday night. So all of you people who don't really have anything to do can just come and join and watch me make a fool out of myself or whatever else that is going to happen on New Year's Eve. I'm trying to get a few things together, some countdown stuff and that kind of thing, trying to figure this out because, again, this is my first full 3-hour show. So anyway, let me go ahead and get the drink out of the way. I like it. It's not quite as spicy as the single barrel, but that's okay. That's all right. Also, tonight, tonight is the first night that I have, so I went and bought myself a programmable keyboard because I got tired of having to hit like all of a bunch of these keys and having mistakes happen on the stream and everything else when the keys didn't go in right. So I purchased a programmable keyboard, and now I've got all of these buttons programmed, and I've got so many buttons. I've got more buttons than I have other things right now, but that's okay because eventually I will probably end up filling them in. But let's go ahead and give the first test to tonight's sponsor, affiliate, whatever you want to call them, the Institute on the Constitution. And the Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1. There is a God. 2. Our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.whiskeymusings.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.whiskeymusings.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.whiskeymusings.online. Or if you want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. This thing has a 100-year warranty against defects in materials and workmanship. And speaking of workmanship, check out the binding. It is a string. It is stitched that goes all the way through the entire book. The papers themselves are water resistant. And I can tell you, this is not only buddy tested and buddy approved, but this is also tested and approved by my youngest fan. You can check that out on Facebook. Young gentleman got this as a early Christmas gift thanks to his father. And this is awesome right here, right now. By the way, all of the links, whenever I say a link, it's actually in the description. It's actually in the description. So you can do that. Or, I guess, I suppose I could find a way to get it in here. All right, let me go ahead and just put this in real quick. Let me hope that I can spell everything correctly. You would think my fingers would already be in the walk, but I think that should be it. Yes, constitutionwhiskeymusings.online. That should cover everything. All right. So thank you, Institute on the Constitution, for allowing me to be an affiliate. And take a look at that. The button worked. I love it. I love it. All right. So we had a little bit of a break. And the break that came out, and it looks like it didn't go to Facebook. That's weird. Let me jump on over to Facebook real quick. And let me put that in here. Sorry. Gotta make sure everybody gets it. Oh, I guess it did show up. It just didn't show up immediately. Okay. Well, all right. Okay, so, sweet. So I have a couple of things as well. But first of all, let's talk about the Twitter files, or the Twitter files dump that happened on Christmas Eve. And, you know, first of all, I mean, as far as the Twitter dump is concerned, pretty much everybody kind of knows already that Twitter pretty much worked with the government to censor our speech, in particular for things like the Hunter Biden laptop, for things like the COVID-19 situation, for all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, so that is, you know, pretty much we all know about that, okay? But the thing that the Twitter files are actually starting to show even further is that these are, it just keeps getting deeper. I mean, it just literally keeps getting deeper. The more that comes out, the more deep this actually goes. So let me go ahead and show you this. This popped in the Federalist today. Well, was it today? No. back, December 27th, which would have been yesterday. So this popped in yesterday, and let me go ahead and bring this up. So apparently the FBI office, and there's actually two of them, but in particular, the one FBI office that was investigating Hunter Biden actually sent Twitter numerous censorship requests right before the 2020 election. So the office, it wasn't even like a screw up. Okay. It wasn't even a screw up in terms of, maybe a miscommunication between, say, the field office out in San Francisco versus the field office in, Philadelphia or something like that. It's one of those things that just further shows that the government, in particular the FBI, but also we find out that the CIA and a couple other intelligence organizations were in on some of this too. But the FBI in particular worked with Twitter from the moment that we know. I mean, come on, seriously. They, big tech is all in bed with one another. Let's just be honest and real. If Twitter did it, everybody did it. Okay. I'm sorry. It just is that's just the way it goes. However, essentially the office of, let's see, which offices? It was the FBI field office that was investigating Hunter Biden sent multiple censorship requests to Twitter. So many, in fact, that a top attorney for the tech giant, which, by the way, that top attorney was the plant inside of Twitter, that he found it odd. The former general counsel of it, James Baker, found it odd that the FBI would be sending all of these requests. And this is out of the Baltimore field office and the headquarters. And apparently they had people, now keep in mind that they had people specifically 80 agents is the rough number that we've been given so far, but 80 agents. And they essentially were doing searches for violations on Twitter. This is what they were being paid to do. They weren't being paid to investigate crimes. They were being paid to page through Twitter, to flag tweets, to then send off to Twitter to get them to censor them and take them off as misinformation. And so this is, I mean, again, this is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. The more that we dig, the worse it gets. So anyway, I mean, you can read through the entire article. I got a bunch of articles to go through, so I'm not going to walk through every single one. But the thing about it is that this just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And by the way, it wasn't just the FBI, but we also have the Twitter files. This from Town Hall. Did the Twitter files just reveal a impeachable offense for Joe Biden? And this particular one, the Twitter files that dropped, also added that the White House, the Biden staff and the White House put pressure on Twitter. And I'm trying to find it here. Here it is. Okay. And it said that the Biden team was not satisfied with Twitter's enforcement approach, as they wanted Twitter to do more and deplatform several accounts. Because of this dissatisfaction, we were asked to join several other calls. They were very angry in nature. And apparently the Biden team, which basically is, circles around the White House. Okay. The Biden team was essentially unhappy about this, and he wanted literally to crush the free speech of anybody who is critical of his policies. And now there's some people out there like Ben Dominic, I'm going to pronounce it that way, but Ben Dominic, who is basically saying that Biden needs to be impeached based off of this. And, to be honest, I mean, this is just adding to a list that we already know. I mean, Biden selling off his influence peddling scheme with his son. That's one. He never should have done the whole, videotape where he was saying, he was going to withhold money to Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I mean, let's be honest. Biden uses the Constitution as toilet paper, as most Democrats do. But unfortunately, this is probably not going to go anywhere as far as Biden is concerned. But it'll be interesting to kind of see how things come out. But the other thing that came out of this, so that was kind of the first two things that came out of this, but apparently there were three more other bombshells that, according to basedpolitics.com, that came out of this that are the most disturbing revelations in the latest Twitter file dump. And the first one, obviously, was that the Biden administration specifically lobbied to have individual accounts banned. We already talked about that just a second ago. But we also have, so here's another little snippet that came out that says Biden, one of the first meeting requests from the White House was about COVID misinformation. Per regular process, public policy took the meeting. Biden's staff focused on vaccines and high-profile anti-vaxxer accounts, including Alex Berenson. So apparently they're focused, you know, again, the government was focused on individuals who were talking about this. And it's, you know, essentially providing contrary opinions, contrary proof, contrary evidence, studies, because again, when you're dealing with something brand new like this, you really should look at all sides first. And as we're starting to find out more and more, the whole COVID-19 situation, everything dealing with the shot, the vaccine, which isn't technically a vaccine, and also is now starting to get linked to things like myocarditis in young men, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, all of that was attempted to be suppressed. But the key here, and this is where I think a lot of the leftists are going to be, you know, looking at the people on the right and say, well, if you guys don't go after this particular one, then, you know, all of the rest of this outrage is just totally bad. And so this is well, obviously, Twitter censored credential experts who disseminated on COVID-19. That isn't the one that I'm talking about. But this part, even the Trump administration lobbied Twitter to censor. So here's the thing. The Trump White House, according to the Twitter dump, the Trump White House, specifically Michael Kratsios, led the Trump administration's calls for help from the tech companies to combat misinformation. Areas of focus included conspiracies around 5G cell towers, runs on grocery stores, and misinformation that could stoke panic buying and behaviors. Now, notice the difference in the target of this. So the thing about it is, though, is that I don't care. I honestly don't care. I'm at the point now where I honestly believe that our government itself, regardless of who sits in the White House, it is the bureaucrats. It is the unelected bureaucrats who continually and keep continually getting brought in, have their jobs and everything else, and never get let go, never get fired, never get whatever. I mean, the entire government, once they were given the opportunity to do this, it doesn't matter whether a Democrat or Republican, that doesn't make any difference anymore. The federal government itself has overstepped its bounds as outlined within this document. It has done so for generations, and nobody has sat back and actually tried to hem the government back in. Okay. So this has nothing to do with who the president is. And it has a little bit to do with who is in Congress, because these people keep freaking bringing these people back in to the fold. But it's not just one political party. It's actually both that are causing all of this. This is turning into an American people versus the federal government kind of a problem. And so This is absolutely horrendous. Just the fact that the Trump administration was even part of this, it looks bad. But the fact of the matter is that they kind of, sort of, yes, they did what Twitter, or they did focus things on Twitter. But the funny thing is that it was on mundane and fairly innocuous topics. However, that being said, once again, any misfeasance or malfeasance on the part of government needs to be reined in, period. That's just the way that we, as the American people, should expect our government, and in particular our federal government, to essentially run and be covered by all of this. This is just ridiculous. It doesn't matter, again, whether it's Republicans or Democrats. I don't care. The fact of the matter is you're violating the First Amendment. That's in here in this Constitution, this document, which is supposed to be your guardrails against all of this crap. And you are essentially going around and taking all of that out. So everybody who is a part of this needs to get out of there. And I'm hoping that the Republicans, the House Republicans that are talking about in opening up an investigation, need to root out all of these people, or as many of them as they can, and get rid of them, get them out of government, period. Get them gone, period. All right. Short shift in gears here. Another major thing that happened. Obviously, the Kari Lake it was sued for the Arizona election. And the thing about the Arizona election, honestly, is that Kari Lake had she had 5 claims. Of the 5, 2 went on to essentially trial. Both of them were dismissed. But in this particular case, the blowback to her, basically suing in order to get the Arizona governor election flipped over, is essentially was an affront to Katie Hobbs. Now, honestly, Katie Hobbs did this. I'm just going to tell you, Katie Hobbs just did this to herself. She should have recused herself. I've said it before. I'll say it again. She should have recused herself and gotten out of the way and everything else. But unfortunately, she did not. She didn't have the ethical wherewithal to go ahead and do that. And so now we're stuck with this mire of a case. But what Katie Hobbs also did, though, is she requested the court sanction Kari Lake over the election lawsuit. And it wasn't just Katie Hobbs that did this. It was also some other individual, Michael something or other. Let me see. Anyway, so Judge Peter Thompson, I can't remember his name, but anyway, Judge Peter Thompson wrote that while Lake didn't meet the burden of providing evidence of her election-related claims, her lawsuit didn't meet the standard for imposing sanctions either. So Thompson essentially ruled that, well, okay, so Kari Lake, yeah, she didn't quite make it, according to me, and so, you know what, Katie Hobbs, Kari Lake's case doesn't come up to the point of sanctions either. So he kind of just sort of tossed both of them out of court, which is interesting, just to say the least. But, we'll see what happens here, because of the fact that even though this case seems to be done down on the lower court level, Kari Lake, true to her word, is going to appeal that judge's ruling on the Arizona election lawsuit. And so she's filed an appeal against Maricopa County judge's ruling to dismiss, which essentially filed a notice of appeal with the same Arizona Superior Court judge on Tuesday to challenge the dismissal of the case. Kari will also seek a direct review by the Arizona Supreme Court, according to a court filing. So this is long from over, to be honest with you. this is long from over as far as that goes. But, we'll have to kind of see after the first of the year, I'm sure, is when things are going to come back and heat up. And we'll just have to watch for all of this. So, yeah, he basically said on Thompson, the judge, has basically said on December 27th that he found that there wasn't enough evidence of misconduct by Maricopa County to overturn the election results in the county. So, yeah, he had allowed 2 of the 10. Sorry, I thought it was 5. It's actually 10. To go to a short 2-day trial. And then he went ahead and said that, on December 27th, that there wasn't enough evidence of misconduct by Maricopa County. Yeah, again, I mean, I fully expect Carrie Lake. She's got some serious cojones. And my guess is that she will continue appealing until she has exhausted all legal avenues to get this done. So, yeah, I fully expect this to continue and possibly even go all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, maybe. Speaking of which, the Supreme Court of the United States, in a rare turn of events, has done something that I think is actually correct. They have temporarily blocked the removal of Title 42 for our border, which essentially means that that we hopefully won't have a crap ton of illegal immigrants aliens, whatever, coming in, and so on and so forth. So that's going to be interesting to watch too, because that is actually going to be heard in February, and the stay essentially just says, hey, we just want you to hold off on removing Title 42 until we have a chance to actually hear the case. And that is Chief John Roberts who went ahead and did that, and the court ruled in a very interesting split, 5-4 split decision, to stay the order. So it just barely made it through. But yeah. Anyway. All right. Biden will continue with his executive orders and stepping into illegal bounds. As you recall, he went ahead and basically said, hey, we're going to forgive student loans. We're going to forgive all of these student loans and we're going to forgive everything here. Okay. Well, all I can tell you is that he's, like I've said on this program, I swear up and down, the man is trying to go for what is known as the record for having the most overturned, or the most executive orders and things like that overturned in the court system, because here he does it once again. Biden apparently is trying to change the food stamps. And let me see what this says. He is illegally boosting food stamp benefits by $200 billion. So basically, he is trying to rule, say, by executive fiat. And yeah. Anyway, so what ends up happening is he just decides, he's just like, hey, I'm King Biden. I'm no longer President Biden. I'm King Biden. I'm just going to rule with a pen and a phone. Oh, wait a minute. Who said that? Oh, yes. Obama said that. Obama said he was going to legislate with a pen and a phone. So this is just following right in Obama's footsteps. And they're just basically peeing on this document right here. They're basically peeing on the Constitution of the United States of America, which has 3 separate entities for governance, and legislation is the one that deals with all of our laws and everything else. So anyway, this guy, I'm telling you, I have no idea where this guy is coming from. And realistically, to be fair, I don't think it's from him necessarily, although I think he may have like good idea, or not good, but have ideas and concepts in his mind that he just sorts of blurts out, and his administration kind of goes and fumbles around and tries to put them out. But yeah, he's just trying to do executive orders, which, by the way, I heard that he was on pace in the beginning of his presidency. He was on pace to actually rival FDR in terms of the number of executive orders. Now, if you'll remember, FDR is the one president who has the most executive orders in our history, almost 4,000, something like 3,700 something is what FDR has on for the record of the most executive orders. Joe Biden was on pace at first to get there. And as of right now, since he's slowed down his pace, he is now on par with President Trump, which again is kind of one of those things where they're sort of trying to compare Joe Biden to Trump, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, again, I think that Joe Biden is actually doing more illegal executive orders and will likely have a bunch of them overturned. We still have a case in the Supreme Court that the Supreme Court just before the holiday break had agreed that they would go ahead and hear a case against dealing with the school loan situation, the student loan situation. And that one is scheduled to be heard, if I recall correctly, going to be heard in February as well. So the first coming months, the first quarter of 2023 is definitely going to be interesting when it comes to this particular scenario with Joe Biden and the court system, because there are a bunch of cases in front of us that have to deal with Joe Biden. All right. So I am right about 30 minutes past the hour. And before I go into the next article, actually, speaking of, let me just continue because this ties it together. So there apparently we have, of course, we have Ron DeSantis, Super Governor Ron DeSantis, who is literally leading the way and showing the way for all the rest of these idiot governors how to handle certain things. Like, for an example, Ron DeSantis it has gone after things like teaching kids, trying to sexualize kids in school with the unaptly named Don't Say Gay bill, which it had nothing to do with saying gay, had nothing to do with any one particular side of the aisle when it came to teaching sex ed to kids. It was just basically saying you can't teach sex ed to kids under third grade, which pretty much he did that. He has now also gotten his state Supreme Court to open up a grand jury to look into vaccine injury cases and things like that. And so this guy is just incredible in terms of his leadership style, leadership ability, etc. He also, I've heard and seen, and this next article doesn't have anything to do with it, but have heard and seen that he is going after a drag queen show that apparently happened in Florida, and he's investigating. It was apparently extremely sexualized, even though it was open to kids. And so this is just amazing as far as that goes. That man, I'm telling you, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'd follow that man into battle. But that being said, and that being the case, he is paving the way for a lot of other places to start questioning the federal-state rights balance. And so I caught this article just before coming online. It was actually published on the 27th. It was actually published yesterday, but I just had a chance to sort of read it. And let me go ahead and show you this. This is in the Epoch Times. But apparently, and I haven't seen this before, but apparently several GOP-controlled state legislatures are actually weighing the constitutionality of presidential executive orders. And in this particular case, what they're trying to determine is whether or not they actually have to follow, based on the Constitution, whether they have to follow those presidential executive orders. And so there were several places already that have put in bills into their state legislatures about all of the presidential executive orders that have been coming out and so on and so forth. There was a proposed House bill Okay, so let me read this real quick. So Representative Brian Seltz, who is a Republican from Branson, will enter his third session when the Missouri General Assembly convenes in Springfield, Missouri on January 4th. And for the third time, he is sponsoring a bill that would require state lawmakers to scrutinize and potentially disregard some presidential executive orders. Under his proposed House Bill 174, the Missouri House must review all presidential executive orders not affirmed by a congressional vote to determine if they, quote, are in fact constitutional. If the Missouri House has questions about the constitutionality of a presidential executive order, the bill requires it to be referred to the state's attorney general to determine if it restricts a person's constitutional rights. So cites apparently is a firm believer in states' rights, he says, and he's very concerned about losing our authority as the legislature to federal overreach. Now, if you recall, and I have been saying this on this show, that I believe the 10th Amendment is one of the most underused amendments when it comes to trying to rein in the federal government. And let me explain to you what the 10th Amendment essentially says. And if you have your Institute on the Constitution book or any copy of the United States Constitution, you can read along with me. But the 10th Amendment is simply a single line, one singular statement that is made. It's one of the shortest amendments as a part of the Constitution. And it states, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Now, simply put, the 10th Amendment basically says that if something that the federal government is doing is not delegated to it by the Constitution, nor is it specifically written in the Constitution as being prohibited to the states, then it belongs to the states. The federal government, essentially, based on Amendment 10, the federal government cannot overstep its bounds within the Constitution, period. So all of these things that you see, like marriage and abortion and all of these other things that are not written in here as a specific purview of the federal government, and is also not written in here as a specific prohibited to the states, belongs to the states. That 10th Amendment in here is, like I said, one of, in my opinion, probably the most powerful, but is definitely up there in terms of, and you can argue with me on it. You can totally argue with me on it. But the fact of the matter is that if we upheld the 10th Amendment appropriately within the court system, that it would be clear that all of these things that the federal government is doing has nothing to do with the federal government. That the states have more power than the federal government does. Now, I've talked about this before, how our system of federalism works. The Constitution clearly was written with the intent to have a very small, far away, limited government. And the closer you got to the people or your constituents, the more powerful things became. This is why state governments are supposed to be smaller than city governments, or county governments. County governments are supposed to be smaller than city governments. And it essentially becomes where the people are at the bottom of the pyramid. The federal government is supposed to be the smallest piece of that. And we have walked away from that. So I'm telling you, read this book, read the Constitution of the United States, read the Declaration of Independence, Go to the Institute on the Constitution and get a hold of some of those books. The entire idea of a large federal government that was essentially ruling people from afar, even in state governments. If you look at places like my home state here in Washington, the entire West Side, which contains the most populous cities of Seattle, Olympia, and Tacoma, that left side, or the west side of the mountains, rules the entire state just by sheer numbers of people. And that is not the way that our country was designed. Our country was designed such that the local authorities had the most authority over the people, because those authorities also not only lived close to those people, but they also understood and could be held responsible to those local people, not some faraway city across the country. The whole idea of our government was to make it so that the federal government was the smallest piece out of the entire system, and that the legislatures, made up of people who were voted in, are the ones that are the most power holders. And the president and the governors, while they have certain powers, they were supposed to be beholden to the legislature, because all they were doing is basically implementing the laws. It was the people who are supposed to hold the power. It was the representatives who represent the people who are supposed to hold the power. And we have long gotten away from that simple and very clear concept of that. And yes, Buddy Weiser does point out that there is a big case coming up soon, which will involve the 10th Amendment. And I can't remember, sorry, Buddy, I can't remember right off the top of my head which one it is, but I do remember that that's there, and I am looking forward to seeing that being tried. All right, got to take a second and a break. Let me just shut this off real quick, because I am going to move over to, and I got to remember which one this is. Okay, this is this one. All right, we're going to move into. Hello, did that not work?
Please check your mailbox. A new message has arrived.
All right, it is time for our pet of the week. And apparently I didn't press the button all the way down the first time, or something happened. But tonight's pet of the week was sent in by 3 Chevy, who is over on Rumble right now. And so we met one of 3 Chevy's kitties here not too long ago as a pet of the week. This is the other kitty. So we've already met Big Girl, and this is Little Girl. And apparently Little Girl is 3 Chevy's wife's cat. And she got the cat because they felt that Big Girl, which is 3 Chevy's cat, actually needed a playmate. And while, just to kind of compare the two animals together, Big Girl is street smart and can forage for her own food. Apparently Little Girl can't, and doesn't have any discernible survival skills other than looking cute, which she is right now, sitting inside of a pan. I can't tell, there's a classic thing that my wife and I have, because I have 2 cats, and we have one who is predominantly outside. He's a male. And then we have another one who's a female, and she's predominantly inside. And the funny thing about it is almost all cats have this thing called, which we colloquially will call, I fits, I sits, meaning that they love to sit in boxes. They love into, all these different places. And so this inspires in me an I fits, I sits situation. Apparently Little Girl figured that she fits in the pan, and so she's going to sit in the pan. And that's the way it kind of works. So she obviously climbs on things to get attention. Yeah, I've had a cat that does that too. But anyway, so that is Little Girl, and thank you to 3 Chevy for providing us this week's Pet of the Week. Do me a favor, if you have a Pet of the Week and would like to submit, or if you have a pet and would like to submit them to Pet of the Week, send me an email to fans. That's Foxtrot Alpha November Sierra fans at whiskeymusings.online. That's fans at whiskeymusings.online. And you can go ahead and submit the animal's name, maybe breed, some backstory, maybe how you got them, etc., etc. And they might be in an upcoming episode of Pet of the Week. So thank you again to 3 Chevy for providing us with this week's Pet of the Week. All right. So before I get into my next thing, I do want to bring up essentially what I'm going to call the dumbass files, I guess. And this is kind of a little bit of comic relief, but for those of you who are old enough to remember, for those of you that are old enough to remember, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Okay. And I've kind of got to figure out, how am I going to do this? Okay. So let me do it like this. All right. So National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. You'll remember Cousin Eddie. And Cousin Eddie had a problem with his RV. Apparently the crapper was full. And just real quick before I move forward. No, Music Man, the pet does not have to still be with us. They can be an old pet as well. We will do all pets. Any pets is fine. All right. So if you'll remember this particular scene from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, where Cousin Eddie had to empty out his RV's crapper, and he dumped it into the sewer drain, which was a water runoff sewer. So obviously he's doing this, illegally, but whatever. It was this scene that somebody in Kentucky, this lady in Kentucky, apparently said that she wanted to emulate. And so she went ahead and put together this Christmas decoration. And apparently somebody somewhere, some idiot somewhere called the cops. Called the cops on this, thinking that this was an actual person. Wow. I mean, first of all, this is Kentucky. No offense, please. But apparently some residents were alarmed when they saw Cousin Eddie on a neighbor's lawn, and police were called to investigate. The dispatcher described the scene to officers on the way to the scene as a man standing outside a home who did not appear to be wearing any clothes, according to the reports. He has a robe covering part of his body. He is exposing himself, and he has a hose between his legs. Apparently, when officers pulled up to the house, they found the mannequin dressed as the character Cousin Eddie from the movie National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Yeah. So this is what it looks like with the snow on it, but this over here is kind of a different view. You can see this creative individual has the beer in hand, has the run over cat in the garbage can, and the green, nasty looking water coming out into a fake, sewer drain. I just can't, wow. I just cannot believe that somebody went and, first of all, somebody was creative enough to make this. Okay. So this is awesome. I love creative decorations and things like that. But what's worse is the fact that nobody took a look at that and realized that it was a snippet from a scene from a movie, and that they thought that it was an individual person and not the mannequin. Oh my gosh, just the fact that somebody just went ahead. I mean, you wouldn't even investigate. You wouldn't like go out and holler at them and say, hey, anything like that. I mean, seriously, this is just, God. Okay. So yeah, so that's our little funny thing, from the movie. I'm going to have to go back and probably watch it. Which, by the way, on an off note, or just on a different note, did anyone notice that a lot of Christmas movies this year on some of the streaming services, where last year or the year before they were done for free, but that this year everything had to get paid. I mean, one of my favorite series is the whole Santa Claus series with Tim Allen. Of course, Tim Allen is a big conservative, and I love his comedy. I've loved his show, Last Man Standing, and things like that. So, but it was interesting to see that the whole series, I mean, even like some of the other movies or shows that are out there, they were all like paid. You had to either rent them or buy them this year. Kind of thought that was sort of interesting, but anyway. All right. So moving on, we have a problem, of course, with voting has obviously been a big boon for Democrats. Okay. And they have been doing things, and I totally maintain that Washington was the proving grounds. Washington State was the proving grounds for a lot of stuff that is happening, because I've seen things like magically appearing ballots being found in all kinds of different places, all throughout the course of the Christine Gregoire Dino Rossi debacle that happened here. So anyway, this is just another effort of the Democrats to try and keep getting their power. Okay. And so let me show you this article. This popped up in the Federalist, which, by the way, is the source of the Federalist Papers. But anyway, so harvesting low effort votes is working great for Democrats, so they're going for more. And according to the article here, which was released today, essentially there is some congressional Republicans, there's some congressional Democrats and things like that are apparently proposing, according to the New York Times, the list of policy proposals for 2023 includes expanding automatic voter registration systems, pre-registering teenagers to vote, granting the franchise to felons, and criminalizing what the left thinks is election misinformation. So these are on the list of policies that Democrats want to propose in 2023. Now, the thing about it is here, it's like automatic voter registration systems, for an example. Here in my state, when you go and register for a driver's license, you can automatically register at the same time for a voter card. Okay. Now, I have a problem with this because of the fact that as a resident of the state, whether you are here, legally, illegally, whatever, you prove certain things. There are certain things on the list to prove that you are a resident of the state. And as long as you can pass the driver's test, you can get what is a driver's license. Now, most states have driver's licenses. All they are is essentially proof that basically shows that you have been able to successfully complete both a written and a hands-on driving test to be able to drive, quote unquote, safely within that state. That's what a driver's license itself is supposed to do. It is not designed nor intended, just like Social Security and our Social Security numbers. They were not designed or intended to be utilized as identifying or identification outside of the ability to drive a car. But unfortunately, because of the prevalence of these things, the many states and organizations have just said, you know what, we already make these things, so let's just go ahead and use them as valid ID for a bunch of other things. For an example, your date of birth is on there, so let's go ahead and create this as a valid ID in order to do things like buy alcohol, open up a checking account, or opening up a bank account, period, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, my biggest issue is this: voting, unless you live in states like California, who have specifically allowed people who are non-citizens to vote in local elections. Okay. Citizens are not, or non-citizens are not allowed to vote in presidential or federal elections. Okay. They literally are not supposed to vote there. But in the states can decide whether or not they want those people to vote in essentially elections that are not going to necessarily affect things on, say, a federal level. So all of these things that you have is the idea that using your driver's license as an identifier to go in and vote, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are actually a U.S. citizen. And this is one of my problems that I have had with the driver's license. I actually think and believe, and have stated this before, that we should forget the idea of using driver's licenses as a permanent ID, okay, for certain things. Now, driver's identification can be used for other stuff, maybe just to, prove age if necessary, that kind of stuff. But when it comes to voting itself, there should be only one accepted picture ID that is utilized. And I personally think that once you turn 18, you already, as a male, you already have to register with the Selective Service. But I believe that when you turn 18, you should be required to apply for a U.S. passport. The U.S. passport has all of the identifying features that you would need in order to be part of a voter ID system. You have to provide proof of citizenship, meaning a birth certificate, a state-issued birth certificate, things like that. So there's all these different things that I actually think the passport, if you want to take something that's already in play, go ahead and use the passport. The passport itself can go and can provide the information that would be needed in order to vote, and that it should be required for all voting purposes. You have to have the passport, okay? And, if you think about it, the Real ID Act was essentially a push to try and get federally mandated elements within the driver's licenses in order to do something of a similar nature. The Real ID Act was essentially making it so that all the driver's licenses would have like forgery proof elements within them to prevent them from being forged by other entities. And unfortunately, state of Washington has been dragging their feet. And so just recently, the Real ID Act was pushed out another couple of years. But I think that if we were to go to a system where you automatically, on your 18th birthday, you automatically apply for a U.S. passport, that would be the only identification that you would need. Okay. You don't need to have your driver's license in order to vote. You would need nothing else other than that U.S. passport. And that to me is a equitable solution to the problem. It also shows that it also has to go through all of the checks for making sure that somebody is actually a U.S. citizen prior to applying for a U.S. passport. So Yes, and actually, Tara pointed this out, Tara over on Facebook, and I agree with this. So she says that she had a driver's license in Germany and she wasn't a citizen of Germany. It was called a European driver's license. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Use the driver's licenses for what the driver's licenses are for. Don't use it for anything other than that. Okay. But anyway, so that was the automatic registration, pre-registering teenagers to vote. Now, in my opinion, we need to get everything in line here, folks. We just do. Right now, 21 is the age that people are allowed to drink. 18 is the age when you are technically an adult. 18 is the age that you can sign up for military service on your own. You don't have to have your parents' permission. You can technically sign up at 17 with parental permission. Okay. We have, in some states, we have 16, who basically at 16, you can buy cigarettes. You have some states where you can't buy cigarettes and actually, well, just here as an example, the gun laws, you can buy, in some states, you can buy a long gun, meaning a rifle, at a lower age than you can buy a handgun. A handgun is 21. Long gun is 18. I look at it this way, folks, and this is probably going to get me into a little hot water, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. Either you're an adult at 18 or you're not. If you're not an adult at 18, then 18 shouldn't be the age where you can sign contracts and documents and do all of the other things that an adult can do. If you want to make it so that if you really think that 18 is the cutoff, then everything is at 18. Drinking, buying a weapon, signing contracts, buying alcohol and, that kind of stuff. All of that stuff should be at the exact same age, at 18. If you honestly believe that an 18-year-old who, by the way, can sign up for military service and carry a weapon and used to be able to drink on military bases, but they can't do that anymore. But the point is that if you don't think 18 is sufficient enough to have a firearm or to drink, then 18 is not an adult. That's just simple logic. Then what you do is you move that into 21 and you say at 21 is when you can join the service. At 21 is when you're considered an adult. At 21 is when you can drink. Driving, on the other hand, I think that there are certain cases where driving needs to be able to be done at an earlier age. But again, that can be done on a state-by-state basis. I'm talking in terms of across the board, across the United States. If you are considered an adult at 18, that should include every single thing that being an adult is consists of. Everything being an adult consists of should be at the same exact age. And honestly, you can make an argument on either way, whether it's 18 or 21. I don't care, but make it the same. If you think that a person who is 18 can sign a contract to not only buy a car, buy a house, or cell phones, credit cards, anything like that, but yet you don't think that same 18-year-old can go out and buy cigarettes, like somebody pointed out in California, you can't buy cigarettes until you're 21, then what's the point in saying that 18, you're an adult? You're an adult with an asterisk behind it? I think that's ridiculous. I think we need to simplify. I think we need to bring all of this stuff back to a simplified form of what is happening. And yes, Amy, they would have to amend the Constitution to change the voting age. You are correct, because one of our amendments was voting was when 18 was your voting age. But here's the thing. And Daybreak 3 puts it out right here. If you can fight in a war at 18, you are an adult in every age. So that's the thing. You want to consider these people adults at 18. You want to give them the power to sign contracts to be able to buy large ticket items like houses and cars and credit cards and all these other things that require an adult mentality, and vote at 18, which requires an adult mentality to understand the issues. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of adults that can't even understand all of this. But if you want to make it 18, make it 18 for everything. If you're an adult, you're an adult. Okay? Plain and simple. All right. And I'm sorry, that was a diatribe into this, but I just wanted to bring that up in particular when we're talking about, all of these wonderful voting things that they want to change, that Democrats want to change, which is a bunch of BS. Has nothing to do with voting rights. It has everything to do with trying to get people who are going to lean the Democrats' way because they vote with their emotions rather than their intellect, in order to keep in power. All right. And yes, student loans are another thing as well. Okay. So we have Title 42. We have the problem at the border and so on and so forth. Well, here is a poll that came out thanks to Just the News. Just the News brought this up, and I thought this was really cool. But Just the News brought this out. What was the date on this? December 26th, so 2 days ago. Apparently, 2/3 of registered voters want to send more law enforcement and military to the border, according to this poll. And 3/4 of Americans actually believe illegal immigration, this is the key, illegal immigration is bad for the country, while that same exact percentage thinks that legal immigration is good. And, honestly, I'm going back to my point. If you're here legally, like you go through the process and you come through and you're legally here, that is a boon for us because you are obviously taking the time to go through a very long and laborious process in order to be here in the country. That indicates that you want to be here. If you're here illegally, even if you're not like a criminal or anything else, if you're just here illegally, then honestly, you are lacking the patience. You are lacking the ability to make intelligent decisions and to also fight for your right to be here. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're here illegally, you have no intention of staying. And I've known of people, I don't know them anymore, but I've known of people who have come in here, come to work only, and then leave and go back to their home country. They have no desire to be a part of the American citizenry. Their whole purpose is to come here and to get as much money as they can in order to go back to their home country. And it doesn't matter what country it is, but to go back to their home country and live. They have no desire to become an American or be an American citizen or even stay here in America for a significant length of time. They are only here for work. And if that's the case, then go through the whole work visa part of it. Okay. Now, that being said, apparently I am not part of the minority in thinking that way. So a survey of roughly 1,200 registered voters by pollster Scott Rasmussen earlier this month, which also found, it's ironically also found President Biden's disapproval rating stuck above 50% a month after the midterm elections, apparently found that 74% believe legal immigration is good and illegal immigration is bad, while 13% each believe immigration, regardless of legal status, is good or bad. So 13% of the country thinks that immigration is bad, period. The vast middle support legal, which is 61%, supports legal but not illegal immigration. So 61% also favor utilizing Title 42, which is the pandemic law that basically says that during a pandemic, we are going to refuse people to keep, sicknesses out of our country. That's what that is. But anyway, the point being is that we have a large portion of the population and the biggest demographics. Okay, so in the survey, the biggest demographic proportions are adults 18 to 34 at 24% and 65 plus, which also comprise about a quarter at 25%. With women 53 outnumbering men 47% across all ages. Republicans constitute about 43% and Democrats constitute 36% in the poll, including each party's leaners, plus 21% choosing other. So anyway, Rasmussen claims that the poll was lightly weighted by geography, gender, age, race, education, internet usage, and political party to reasonably reflect the nation's population of registered voters. The margin of error is plus or minus 2.8%. So essentially, thinking that illegal immigration is bad is definitely popular among this poll. And again, not assuming that polls are right, because oftentimes they're not, okay? But essentially looking at this and extrapolating this across that, you would say that the majority of the country does not agree with the Biden administration with regards to opening up the borders. So there we go. Okay. And okay. So let me go ahead. I'm almost at the end. I do have a couple of other things that I really want to hit really quickly before I go. And so the first one is that Epstein. So the Virgin Islands, which is where Epstein's little Lolita Island is actually in, it is actually part of the U.S. Virgin Islands. They apparently are suing J.P. Morgan Chase, alleging that J.P. Morgan Chase, along with along with the Deutsche Bank, I think it is. Deutsche Bank. Yeah, I believe it's Deutsche Bank. But they are apparently suing J.P. Morgan Chase and Deutsche Bank, alleging that they turned a blind eye to Jeffrey Epstein and his child trafficking, sex trafficking things. So that happened on Tuesday, and they filed the lawsuit against the banking giant. And essentially, the Virgin Islands Attorney General, Denise George, said in a complaint filed in Manhattan District Court that J.P. Morgan Chase facilitated the trafficking of minors for sexual abuse at the hands of Epstein. Are we finally going to get the Epstein book? I mean, seriously, come on, folks. This has been such a long time. This is such a long time, and I can't. The client list is the key. Bring out the client list. I personally hope that this actually comes up. So anyway, and I just caught this. Music Man, the the Patriots Almanac is on Saturday nights. Okay, that's Saturday night, which I will have for this Saturday. Okay, so back to this. I mean, come on. We have been waiting and waiting and waiting. I know that there's a lot of high valued personnel in that black book. And realistically, yeah, these people, they all need to go to jail. But this is going to be one case that I think we're going to need to watch, just because of the fact that this is suing a private company that provided monetary support to Jeffrey Epstein. So this is going to be kind of interesting to watch. And then another one that is kind of scary and interesting, but I guess Breitbart reports that China is launching has launched the largest incursion yet into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. And this came out today. But apparently they incurred on Sunday. 71 Chinese military aircraft entered into the zone in a span of 27 hours, 43 of them also crossing the median line for the Taiwan Strait. Seriously, folks, I mean, I'm just going to tell you right now, 2023, within the next, say, probably 2 to 5 years, China will invade Taiwan. It's just, I'm stating it now, flag it, mark it, whatever. Seriously, it's going to be, Joe Biden's going to have to do something. He's going to have to do something with this. Seriously. So anyway, that's just further upping the temperature over in the China-Taiwan situation. And of course, Joe Biden is going to have to deal with this, which I don't think he has the capacity to do. But anyway, also saw this. According to Blaze Media, the trucking industry hit with stricter pollution regulations from the EPA that could drive up operating costs. Well, as I've said on multiple occasions, whenever you have something that drives up operating costs, I guarantee you it will also drive up prices. So no, folks, inflation is not going to be going away anytime soon. Okay. Actually, that is a good point. So where is Joe spending his vacation? In the U.S. Virgin Islands. So anyway, this is just, I hate to kind of put you out on a sour note, but honestly, nothing is going to get better in the next couple of years. I don't think so. Anyway, hopefully the new year will be better in some other things, some other facets in terms of the Republicans taking over the House of Representatives. But honestly, I'm not entirely sure that stuff is really going to come out to anything. We'll just have to see. All right, that is my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. Do me a favor. If you like the show, please go over to Rumble, sign up. It is free, and subscribe. I am at 454 subscribers over there. I'd like to try and see how high I can get prior to the new year. I'd like to start the new year off strong and gaining subscribers. It's okay if you don't want to go there. I do stream on Facebook. My Facebook, I'm getting closer to 500. I'm over 400 now, but I'm getting closer to 500 followers on Facebook. And so do me a favor, just wherever you choose to. I would prefer Rumble because that's my streaming platform of choice. But wherever you choose to, just go and hit subscribe. Follow me on social media and everything else. And I will see you guys on Saturday for my epic first time 3 total hour show for New Year's Eve. We're going to count down till midnight on the East Coast right here on the Whiskey Musings broadcast on Saturday night. We'll see you then. Good night, everybody.